Now that OnePlus has completed its transformation into a fully fledged big boy smartphone company, the way we judge its phones also needs to change. The OnePlus 9 series starts at $729 in the US and goes all the way up to $1,069 for the top configuration of the 9 Pro. And make no mistake, that is absolutely flagship Galaxy or iPhone money. For this year's phones then, OnePlus is pinning its hopes on a brilliant display, lightning quick charging, and a brand new camera collaboration. So let's not waste any time, let's jump right into our full review of the OnePlus 9 and 9 Pro. Take a sec to subscribe so you don't miss more reviews like this, and we'll get started. Let's begin with the obvious. These are the best looking phones OnePlus has ever produced. Whether you get the OnePlus 9 with a 6.55-inch screen or the 9 Pro with a 6.7-incher, it'll be adorned with this new redesigned back panel and a fresh loadout of colours. There are some more subdued hues available, but I've been using the OnePlus 9 in Winter Mist, which is kind of purplish, and the 9 Pro in Morning Mist, which is a striking silver. Both of these particular colours have this gradient effect from top to bottom, going from almost completely opaque to a brilliant mirror finish down below. I'm a big fan of this look, but if you're not, then there are some more reserved matte colours available for both devices. We'll get to the cameras themselves in more detail a little later, but it's worth pointing out that the camera hump on the back, complete with new Hasselblad branding, is much more of a design feature than in older OnePlus phones. It actually feels like it's been designed as opposed to just kind of being there. While the family resemblance here is clear, there are plenty of design contrast between these two. The OnePlus 9 changes things up with a flat display at Full HD Plus resolution, whereas the 9 Pro sticks with a curved Quad HD panel, though with a less pronounced taper around the edge compared to previous Pro models from OnePlus. These are both phenomenal displays for the money, though it's clear the 9 Pro has the edge in terms of peak brightness and colour. And while both screens run at up to 120Hz, the Pro also claims bragging rights for using LTPO technology, letting it clock down as low as 1Hz to save power. This isn't something you'll ever see working, but it's there saving you a little bit of power when you don't need the full speed of the screen. It's also worth touching on the build quality of the 9 versus the 9 Pro because, while both are glass-backed, very shiny and quite nice looking, the outer frame of the regular OnePlus 9 is made of plastic like the OnePlus Nord. I don't particularly mind it, and visually it's pretty much the same as the metal on the OnePlus 9 Pro, but you can feel the difference. Speaking of which, I've also really appreciated the upgraded haptic motor of the OnePlus 9 Pro. Haptic feedback feels firmer than most other Android phones. Whether you're typing, multitasking, or gaming, it's one of those things that helps a phone feel more premium. The situation with water resistance is a bit confusing though. Basically, it's the same deal as last year with the OnePlus 8 and 8 Pro. All OnePlus 9 Pro models are rated IP68 for protection against water and dust, but the 9 is not unless you buy it through T-Mobile in the US. However, there's no physical difference with the T-Mobile models, so you can pretty much draw your own conclusions about the level of protection in those unlocked versions. Besides that, these are OnePlus phones, so you have fast, reliable in-screen fingerprint alongside convenient face unlock through the in-screen selfie camera. And of course other OnePlus perks like the good old alert slider that's been with us since the OnePlus One. It's pretty striking how the OnePlus 9 Pro doesn't feel like as much of a brick as the 8 Pro did, thanks to a small reduction in size and weight possibly weight distribution as well. It's obviously still a large phone, but for me it's closer to that sweet spot where it doesn't feel too hefty or unwieldy. The regular 9 is a bit easier to one hand, but still, as you can see, it's definitely not a small phone either. Going from 9 to 9 Pro then is more a difference in price than it is size. Whichever device you choose, you'll get the same loadout of core specs built around the Snapdragon 888 processor. Base models of both come with 8GB of RAM and 128GB of storage, but OnePlus will sell you a 12 plus 256GB version of either for an extra $100. And because these are flagship OnePlus phones, both are extremely quick, with instant app loads, fast multitasking, and the kind of raw performance and responsiveness you expect from the pairing of a Snapdragon 888 with a 120Hz screen. I've been using the European versions of both OnePlus 9s, which are dual SIM 5G models. If you're picking up one of these in the US though, things are a bit more complicated. They'll be sold on contract through T-Mobile, but the unlocked versions aren't currently certified for 5G on AT&T or Verizon, which automatically makes the audience for these phones that much smaller in the States. That said, my colleague Hayato Huseman was able to get his OnePlus 9 Pro up and running on 5G with Google Fi, so other operators that run on T-Mobile's 5G network will probably work okay. Of course, we can't talk about a OnePlus phone without looking at Oxygen OS, well, I guess unless you're in China. Anyway, for the rest of the world, your OnePlus 9 will run on Oxygen OS 11.1, based on Android 11, which is pretty much a known quantity, and not much has changed on the software side since we reviewed the OnePlus 8T last year. OnePlus has improved the phone's memory management and added the Google Dialer and Messages app as the default for calls and texts, but otherwise the new interface we saw in the 8T is largely unchanged. It's a more opinionated design language than what we saw from OnePlus a year ago, with a focus on big bold text, OnePlus's trademark font, and strong accent colors, but it's also thoroughly customizable if you don't like the out-of-box look. And sure, Oxygen OS isn't as close to bone stock Android as it was a year ago, but this aesthetic has grown on me over the past few months, and I appreciate that I can make it look a bit more like a Google Pixel when I want to. Another welcome feature that makes the jump across from the OnePlus 8T is 65-watt wired charging. In fact, the new Warp Charge 65T is even faster than the previous 65-watt spec, on account of improvements inside the phones themselves that let them slurp up more power for longer. OnePlus quotes charging times from 0 to 100% in 29 minutes for the 9 Pro, which practically means that however close you are to the danger zone, you'll probably be back to safety in about the time it takes to make a cup of coffee. But what's an even bigger deal is faster wireless charging for the OnePlus 9 Pro. The regular 9 can do up to 15 watts on a compatible pad, but pair the OnePlus 9 Pro with the new Warp Charge Wireless 50 pad and, you guessed it, it can suck down up to 50 watts of juice without a cable. Obviously you need to buy this thing separately, but it's a huge added convenience, and the built-in fan does a great job at keeping the phone cool. And like with the previous model, there is an automatic bedtime charging mode to stop the fan from disturbing you overnight. With all this talk of super fast charging, you might have expected the battery life to be less than impressive, and that's not quite the case. You're looking at a solid full day of use from both phones' 4500 mAh batteries, but definitely not much more than that. My typical screen on time averaged around 4 to 4.5 hours on a heavy day on the Pro, and for the regular OnePlus 9 I was seeing towards the upper end of that range, but definitely not more than a full day in total. Interestingly, I didn't see any of the more extreme battery drain that I got from the Oppo Find X3 Pro in either of the OnePlus devices, which is kinda weird given the hardware similarities with Oppo. But it does have to be said that with such fast wired and wireless charging, only getting around a full day, or maybe a little bit less than that on very heavy days, is probably fine considering you're only ever a few minutes away from escaping that low battery warning. Alright, we've waited long enough, it is finally camera time, and the OnePlus 9 Pro builds on what was already a solid performance last year in the 8 Pro, which at the time was the only really good OnePlus camera. The big deal branding-wise is the new partnership with veteran camera firm Hasselblad, which applies to both phones. OnePlus has worked with the Swedish camera brand on image tuning, but just as important is the hardware itself, and that's where the 9 Pro earns its place as a true premium smartphone camera. For the Pro, the main sensor is a custom-made Sony IMX789, a 48MP sensor that's the successor to the IMX689 used in last year's OnePlus 8 Pro. And it uses the same high-quality 50MP IMX766 sensor for the ultra-wide that we saw in the very recently released Oppo Find X3 Pro. That's in addition to an unnamed 8MP telephoto that shoots at a 3.3x zoom. Over on the vanilla OnePlus 9, the main sensor is the IMX689 from last year's flagship, but without optical stabilization, and that's paired with the same IMX766 for the ultra-wide. Both models use the same 16MP fixed focus selfie camera, which performs identically, but for some reason unfortunately still doesn't support nightscape mode. And both phones for some reason also have a 2MP monochrome camera that contributes basically nothing to the equation. So is the camera experience any good overall? Well, the answer, especially for the Pro, is a resounding yes. I'll get the biggest disappointment out the way first. The telephoto camera is fairly weak next to the Samsung competition, OnePlus gets away with a lot thanks to its great post-processing, but the small pixel size and low resolution of the telephoto means that shooting anything beyond a 5x zoom level is gonna be a bit of a challenge. As for telephoto video, you can forget it because the video mode never uses the telephoto camera, even at 3x zoom and beyond. But the main and the ultra-wide cameras, legitimately very impressive across the board. With either camera you can pretty much guarantee good-looking, evenly exposed shots with natural-looking colours in almost any lighting conditions. That part about natural colours could be the Hasselblad effect. There's certainly less of a tendency towards excessive saturation compared to older OnePlus cameras. Another area of the new Hasselblad post-processing I'm less of a fan of is the borderline excessive sharpening that you see in some situations. It's more obvious in the 9 than the 9 Pro, especially in zoomed pictures, but yeah, in some daylight shots there is some fairly aggressive sharpening to be seen if you go pixel peeping. Also, certain types of overcast natural light will sometimes confuse the exposure or HDR in a way that leaves shadows underexposed. This doesn't happen often, but I came across it enough that it's definitely a thing with this camera, at least on the current firmware. A quick tap to expose will usually fix it. These are all real nitpicks though. Overall, I'm a big fan of the OnePlus 9 Pro's cameras, and I'm especially appreciating the major improvements to nighttime capture, including superior color science with that main sensor compared to OnePlus's sister brand Oppo. Over on the vanilla OnePlus 9, it's a similar story, same ultra-wide, so same results. The 9's main camera also keeps pace pretty well with the Pro even without OIS, with the only real difference being low light. The 9 Pro's main camera really pulls ahead in moderate to very dark conditions, and while these nightscape shots from the OnePlus 9's primary camera aren't bad by any means, it's very clear the Pro is a step ahead in low light. The same basic trends apply to video from both of these two phones. The OnePlus 9 Pro has a couple extra fancy features that are lacking from the cheaper version: 8K video recording at 30 FPS for ridiculously high resolution, and 4K at up to 120 FPS so you can slow down to 25% speed. 8K video on a phone is still kind of a gimmick, and if you drill down to 100% on an 8K clip you'll see plenty of fine detail being lost. Slow-mo 4K is pretty fun though, even if it's not something you'll use every day. But once again, where that more advanced sensor and optical stabilization really helps out is in darker nighttime captures, with the video from the 9 Pro pulling in noticeably more fine detail and salvaging more accurate colors out of the same scene. So does Hasselblad really live up to the hype? Well, it's hard to say, but these are certainly OnePlus's best cameras yet, easily competitive with Samsung and others, and a significant part of that is the color science that makes these photos look as good as they do. It's not perfect, there is room for improvement in some areas like sharpening, and I would prefer it if OnePlus was a little more trigger happy with HDR like Oppo is. Overall though, you're looking at a fantastic set of cameras on the 9 Pro, and a pretty great one, though with some strings attached, on the regular OnePlus 9. OnePlus is no longer the small upstart brand of years past. Its phones are now competing directly with the most expensive handsets from Samsung and Apple. At just over $700, the regular OnePlus 9 offers a different balance of features compared to the base model S21, but the overall package is just as compelling. It's not the very best at everything it does, but it's a good-looking, well-balanced, performant phone at a reasonable price. The OnePlus 9 Pro is undoubtedly one of the best Android phones available right now, an overachiever in almost every area, and look, it should be with price tags around the $1,000 mark. The problem for OnePlus is that starting price relative to the competition. In a market where the Galaxy S21 is perpetually discounted, it's less easy to overlook its telephoto deficiency, even if the other cameras are broadly on par with the very best available. Samsung's flagship is just that good, and right now priced perilously close to the 9 Pro. For many people, the price, especially for the 12 plus 256GB model, is gonna be a tough sell. That said, OnePlus's flagship has plenty going for it. A smaller, lighter form factor than Samsung, faster charging, and in my opinion, much nicer software. Not to mention displays and performance that are just as good. So if you value all those things that make the OnePlus experience unique, this phone delivers all that, along with almost the very best cameras on Android. That's it for now, stay tuned and subscribe for more reviews like this one, and let us know what you think of the OnePlus 9 series down in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.